Thank you so much, Anil. It's a great feeling and extremely pleasurable moment for me right now to have this very candid heart-to-heart conversation with you. And also, I would like to congratulate you on Dr. HR. It's a beautiful concept and very, very aptly termed. I think which will certainly help the businesses and the budding HR, folks to get a lot of insights. So I must congratulate you on this. This is a great initiative. And just to put it across about me, as he introduced a bit about me. Yes, my name is Sukhpreet Sandhu. I head HR for Spinny. Been in this industry for about a little more than a decade, and been with organizations. You can of course check about me on LinkedIn. I won't talk about that. But as a person, I'm into fitness. I'm a certified fitness and nutrition coach. I'm into dancing. I do Zumba. I do Latin dancing. I am anything that involves holistic wellness. That can also be related to your mindfulness approach. I'm a pranic healer. I do a lot of energy healings, and I love eating and I love cooking. So that's about me as an individual.
Viewers, you cannot get a better speaker or better guest than Sukhpreet, who is young, dynamic, and features amongst top 40 HR heads in our country. So I feel very proud to welcome you, Sukhpreet, to this fireside chat. In our session today, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions related to organization culture, and I'm sure my young audience would definitely want to get inspired and learn from a HR head who is below the age of 40. During this unprecedented times, we have seen how organizations have made some adjustment with their organization culture. And specifically, while talking about organization culture, I also came across a concept called flexible organization culture. So my first question is around that. I want to know from you, what is a flexible organization culture to you?
It is more to do with being adaptive, the kind of agilities that are required in an individual. And this unprecedented time, I would say this is the real VUCA. Yeah, we talk about it, we read about it. I think we're one of some of the fortunate individuals who experienced this kind of overnight change that happened in how organizations foster their business models, how they foster their cultures. And at the same time, for me, the definition of it would be very, very much related to being less subjective on how people carry their mindsets and outlook. At the same time, it's more to do with how we leverage the two important facets of people. One is their skill set, and second is the intent, because these are the two things that get fueled into the business, and they actually make or break the entire ecosystem or any kind of talent landscape that we look forward to make it. And last but not the least, for me, the flexible culture or a definition of flexible culture would be not just about clocking in hours, clocking out hours. It's just about how efficiently one manages the entire contribution of their work and drive the overall organization performance by, complementing the right organization values. And last but not the least, foster more input-driven work culture than chasing outputs mindlessly.
Now, that brings to me my next question. Fostering organization culture is very, very important. Could not agree more to that. But how do you really do that when everything is virtual?
Fostering a culture which is flexible should also demand flexibility in our approaches and mindset and how we form philosophies and processes in an organization, right? So building a culture, it's just not about, or just not the owners or the accountability of the CXOs or the HR heads or the HR folks in the organization, but also it is more comprehensive, it is more inclusive, hearing from everyone across what they really want. And, once that gets settled, the entire setting in itself, right, brings a change or a flexibility in the mindset. Right? And a mindset shift is something that needs to, get a prime attention. So I would say like a perceptive versus a progressive mindset. Sure. One of the studies I was just reading, I think one of the reports that I was reading earlier, sometime earlier this week, was that in the last 6 months, you'd come across an average employee has been, working around 20% extra, being 20% extra productive, right? And especially in this virtual setting. So as leaders, it's very important for us, or as organizations, it's important to us how we give that 20% extra flexibility to the individual, right? Without compromising on the deliverables. And as I said, at the end of the day, it's all about keeping things very, very simple. 2 things that can easily sail through, according to me. One is the right expectation setting. And second is communication, maybe sometimes over communication.
Sure. No fireside chat would be complete if I do not ask a question about multi-generational workforce, especially when I'm in conversation with a young HR head. So Sukhpreet, in your experience, what are some of the examples where you customized your service offerings specifically to cater to your multi-generational workforce?
As it said that no size fits all, but I believe that there are some sizes that fit certain set of groups, right? And that's wherein I begin things. As I said, I'm foodie. There is something I generally use, in my professional side as well, which is called appetite analysis, right? So very interestingly, I would run this entire mechanism to understand, as I said, what I'm trying to drive at the end of the day. But there are a few things that I would understand and draw the appetite, whether what is being, who needs to be fed what, right? So I may be a vegetarian, and if I am given chicken to eat, I would not even look at it, right? So for me, as I said, that communication, that breaking that barrier, transparently bringing these things can be done in various ways. Of course, we can, go on about it. So a couple of metrics that I would look at, of course, to quantify things, keeping in mind some part of data needs an important, plays an important role here. One is, of course, what is the average age of the people that we work with? So that drives your overall, agenda. Second, I'm trying to break it up into the diversity, right? How many men, how many women, of course, in the certain age groups that we have. What is the kind of talent inflow we have, talent outflow that we have, right? Where are we getting the talent from, and where are we losing the talent ultimately? To a business competition, or to a let's say maybe a general competition for that matter, maybe a talent competition, which of course these two necessarily cannot be the same sometimes. I would also look at one thing here is the average tenure of an employee under one manager. Now, this is one part which I would love to, get some insight on, so that once we tailor-made certain practices and certain things for people, this would really serve an important element. Because ultimately, as you would agree that if HR professionals are expected to wear the business hats, the business is also expected to wear the HR hats sometimes. So this works as cohesively as I can say this here. So, by conducting all this and, getting all your, themes ready, once you compile it and put it under one layout or one piece, right, the data starts to talk to you, right? And as you rightly termed in the introduction of your Dr. HR, where I was checking it on LinkedIn and YouTube later, that we are actually diagnosing the aspects that are threat to the business. And the business's DNA, its vital processes, if not vital organs, of course, but the vital processes. So each age group shall have some real insights to give you in terms of what they want, right? So example, some of the findings actually surprised me in one of the organizations I worked with. So we realized that, anybody who's falling, let's say, an age group of 40 plus or a 35 plus or 45 plus for that matter, would be looking at like a financial stability, ease and stability of work within an organization. But when we carried this entire activity out, we realized that this was actually not the need of this particular age group, but this is a need of an age group, anybody falling in age group of 25 and 30. Sure. So that was an eye opener, right? And this one of the things that broke the myth that most of us had, that how we perceptively and with a perceptive mindset we keep looking at the fact that if this is a guy falling in an age bracket of X to Y, I think these are the needs that we need to look at, because this is how the market looks. While market give you an image, but your company and your organization will give you a different image altogether. So this entire appetite analysis thing, came out to be a very interesting concept wherein you put together an offering menu for them, if I term it up this way. right? It can be from assistance in adopting a child to, helping someone adopting a child to helping find the best doctor for someone's pet, right? And to also how they want to get assessed for their performance, whether it's a 90-degree or a 360-degree or a two-way feedback mechanism or a daily check-in or a weekly check-in, but also to a level that how they want to acquire new skill sets and learn new competencies to achieve their career goals. And believe me, why would I do this? Just for the right experience, from which changes their focus from working for a preferred employer to working for the most loved place to work. So this is how I could put it across.
While we all know that there are a lot of benefits of having a flexible organizational culture, this is a very commonsensical question. Do you see any kind of demerits of having a flexible culture in organizations? Specifically, the counter narrative would be managers or probably the CEO might come up and say that, hey, this will not help you out in setting a standardized process. So hence, let's not go ahead and have a flexible organization culture because it has more demerits. How do you look at such critical comments, and what's your take on this?
So I think, again, blocking into 2-3 segments. One will be when someone or a CEO, let's say, of an organization is coming forward and saying, I don't want this traditional culture. I want something like a very flexible culture, which is non-hierarchical, which is open door, and so many more, I can say so many more jazzy words. But at the end of the day, it's the vision that someone has, and we are here to translate the vision into some sort of reality that gives the benefit to the overall organization and as an individual. Because as HR folks, as HR partners, we are also responsible to coach the CEOs and coach our stakeholders to make them better people managers and better individuals, to have that human touch whenever they drive any business agenda with people. So everything has two sides, right? Pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages, and so on and so forth. We can talk about it. But I think for any organization to foster a great flexible culture, it's very important to leverage the strengths rather than mulling over weaknesses of any model, right? Every business model has its cons and, it has its pros and cons, right? But if we start just mulling over the, weaknesses or maybe perhaps demerits, you would never be able to see the charm that the merits can bring, right? It's just, again, I'll go back to the thing. It's a focus shift here. And the key lies in, being prepared for what worst can happen. So the weaknesses can help you prepare for what worst can happen in case I try this. There are hierarchical organizations, right? And you have to go and talk to this guy first and this guy second and that guy, for and so forth. And certain organizations, you can directly reach out to the CEO and, talk about, anything and everything, right? So it's just about being prepared for the worst. Do the contingency planning. Your contingency plan should be ready, right? And live and aspire for the best. Whilst there is always a scope of anything to get diluted, especially with such exhaustive processes that you make, which are tailor-made for certain group of individuals. Let's say maybe tailor-made for certain departments, maybe tailor-made for certain, the age groups for that matter, or maybe tailor-made for certain regions, right? Where there is a law of land coming in or a need of the setup coming in. So, but if they're tailor-made and implemented in a way that there is a right set of testing that you have done, dipsticks have been done well, you've incorporated right set of possible challenges and threats that you can see, the chances of adaptation and adoption both are higher, especially when there are lesser ambiguities. If I create a process, I can make, we're very good in creating ambiguity sometimes, right? You'll come across people are very good in creating ambiguities. If you just make things simpler, right? It's just, as I said, simple part is very important. So the lesser the ambiguity, the lesser the chances for it to fail. And the failure only happens when things are highly ambiguous, right? And after all, we are not playing around with the standard procedures. We're just trying to place these procedures in such a way that what can benefit what set and what can be more beneficial for someone. And I think if that is this is the approach we take, the possibility of highlighting or getting the demerits is very, very minimal here, right? Of course, the challenges will continue. If there are no challenges, I'm sure there is no learning. So challenges will certainly continue, but if this is done well, right? If it's done confidently, if it's done really well, and you have to be very bold in certain decisions to take, right? If you don't showcase that, I think an organization leader has to be very, very bold in terms of taking certain decisions and be ready for the repercussions with their contingency plan. So I think serves this way.
Why do company culture they fail? And what can rest of the budding HR heads or budding HR professionals can learn from that experience?
So I think I'll start with two things, or rather three things here. One here is in the gap in the business and people practices. Now, let me ask you, Vim, you've also been with, one of the best organizations to work with. When you see that as a CEO or as the founder of a firm, you have your business manifesto beautifully made. You do your business check-ins, you do your business reviews. I've hardly seen any CEO or any business leader coming forward and doing a culture review or referring to a culture manifesto. For example, you want to drive innovation at workplace, right? So you say that innovation is one of my values, one of my culture drivers. But do I really let people innovate? Or it is just innovation is just another process variation that we're trying to do, right? So if there is no culture manifesto, if the business decisions are taken in silos and those business decisions have an impact on people, I think that's one major part wherein your entire culture framework, you bring best of the practices, you bring best of the people on board, it will fall flat. Sure. Second here is what is the kind of culture I'm trying to make? Like I say, I want to make an open culture. I want to make too closed, too open. So that thought fragmentation, if it's there, then there's another reason for any org culture. I'll give an example here. Now, if you say that we follow non-hierarchical culture, right? We follow an open culture. Let's say we follow an open culture in an organization. If an employee reaches to the top level directly and says that I have this small problem, the conduct of the way that top level director or the leader is displaying talks volumes about it. I'll give an example. As if an employee has reached him or her, talks about I have this very minute small issue. Anyone who comes with that perceptive mindset will say the one who's supposed to lead that thing has not done his job. If the query or if the grievance is for an X department, I won't term it. If it's for an X department, the very traditional mindset will be that this person hasn't done his job well, right? And that's the reason he has reached me. Yeah. And if this is what I start driving and conceiving in my mind, I will never be able to foster this. Example I'll give you that, I may have, most of the leaders have this, we have big thinking. We do big thinking, and it's very important for big thinking. But when it comes to converting that big thinking into action, Anil, one thing that plays an important role is, what the kind of mindset I would carry, right? So honestly, with the mindset of a lemonade, I can never get champagne, right? So if that is there, if there is a thought fragmentation, too much of thought fragmentation like this, wherein there is a lack of trust or maybe lack of, it may not be presented to anyone, but it's there in my head. I'm getting 2-3 queries directly from this person or these teams. I would think that the people who I'm employed as leaders in my team aren't doing the job. However, that is one essence you're trying to drive, that it's an open culture. You have a hierarchical culture here, but open culture in your documents. And last but not the least, another reason organization culture fail is that organizations within an organization, right? Whilst every team has its own way of functioning, every unit has its own way of functioning. There are, technical nuances to it. There are functional nuances to it. However, if you see there is a small org within a bigger org that is driving its own agenda, right? Wherein it is secluded, working in silos, or or important decisions that need to be taken collectively, for a greater good, are being taken with very, very small group of individuals, and it's being imposed upon others. I think they're setting up themselves for not only a big culture failure, but I think failure as coaches, failure as leaders, and I think failure as a human sometimes, because you're not able to connect to the people in a way that one should get connected to. Henceforth, according to me, these are the couple of things which can lead to culture failure. Of course, there are smaller elements to it, but broadly speaking, these are the three segments.
Sure. Have you also come across leaders who normally preach, who will say that these are the stuff that you got to be doing, but when it comes to walking the talk, then probably some leaders expect exceptions. Okay, this is for rest of the people, but not for me.
Right, I have come across, right, and not a few, but quite a few, I would say, yeah. And again, there are two things you learn from people, Anil, at the end of the day. One is what you should be, and second is what you should not be, right? And that's very important for us. And at the end, you ape your leaders you work with. And it's important to you what are the attributes that you should learn. And sometimes not so positive attributes are also important to learn, to see what could be the implication on other people or on yourself as a human being, if at all you project a similar set of behaviors.
So thank you so very much for being candid, for being blunt, and for sharing your practical, on-ground, real-life cases. I thoroughly enjoyed interacting with you, Sukhpreet. And thanks a lot again for joining the Candid Conversation in Dr. HR. Thank you so very much.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Anil. As I said in the beginning, it's always such a pleasure to have chat with you. We resonate on a lot of thoughts. We resonate on a lot of practices and thought processes that we carry. Always good to share these things, discuss, and of course learn in turn. From seasoned professionals like you. And again, my pleasure being here. I really feel glad that you invited me for this very interesting fireside chat on Dr. HR. Thank you so much, Anil.